right, so for this week's deep dive lesson, I thought I would take the Jerry Garcia Grateful Dead thing that I started in the middle of the week. You can see that if you want by going to Active Melody and doing a search for VG30. That was the lesson number for that. That's actually the lead that went over this. But I thought, you know what? I haven't done a good rhythm lesson in a while, and that Grateful Dead jam band rhythm thing is so infectious. And it's so much fun to play and listen to that I thought this would make for a really good lesson. So I took the jam track and changed it up a little bit, added a different keyboard part, and actually sped it up a little because I thought the original one is a little too slow for the groove I was looking for. So that's what we're going to be learning in this week's lesson is the rhythm part, is a jam band rhythm. It's so much fun to play, and you're going to be able to play it by the end of this video. So I've got this lesson split into two parts. In this video, we're going to go through the first half of everything that was played in the intro. If you'd like to watch the second half, download the tablature, download the MP3 jam tracks, which I have in multiple tempos. You can get all of those things by going to activemelody.com. Go to the weekly lessons page and do a search for EP409. All right, so let's break this down. Now we're going to be playing this in the key of A. There's three chords. There's the 1-4-5 chord, A, D, and E. And we're going to be playing those chords in different positions on the neck. So if you're trying to become familiar with the neck and how to play all over the neck and how to play chords in different spots, this will be a great lesson for that. And they're not really complicated. Most of what we're going to be doing, a lot of them anyway, are going to be little triads, easy to play. But the first thing I want to break down is the rhythm. Now I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the rhythm. It is all tabbed out. I have all the strokes in the tablature. But on this first A chord, I am going to break it down so that we can at least get the groove going. And you can actually just carry that groove throughout the whole thing. But I'm going to play a little bit of this, and I want you to watch my right hand. Just watch what's going on there. So here we go. So you can see it's... And you're playing a heavy downstroke on the beat like this. I'm going to exaggerate it here. So look at this. Down, down, up, down, down, up. You can see that the down, up that follows is a little less in terms of aggressiveness. And so before you do anything, just try and mute your strings, but just touch them with your left hand and try and get a groove going like that. And once you get comfortable with that, you might consider throwing in some fills like a drummer would do. So you do something like... Right? You can kind of play around with it, but just stick to that original groove first. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to start with the A chord. Now this is an A bar chord. It's just your major bar chord using the E shape out of cage. And I slide into it like that. If you have a hard time playing bar chords, I know some of you do, you could just play the triad. I mean, that's another way to do it. So those of you that are struggling with your left hand, I know some of you there's arthritis, there's all kinds of hand issues out there. So you might think about doing it another way. Never just walk away from it. Just find another way of doing it. Just remember when you're playing a full bar chord, it's just these same three notes repeated. It just makes it sound a little fuller. Okay, so the first thing is we slide in with a downstroke and then we play up, down with the right hand. So just do that first. That's the first step. So after that, we're going to go like this. So I'm playing down, up, down, muted down, and then up. So let me do that slowly. Get it going. Little groove. All right, now I know some of you that are more rhythmic, you're going to go right into that no problem. Be like, all right, dude, I got it. And I know some of you are going to really struggle trying to get that down. So don't beat yourself up if that's difficult. And I remember having a really hard time doing this stuff in the beginning. I would watch guitar players just look effortless. They could be talking to somebody and playing, and it looks like they're not even paying attention. And meanwhile, I'm like breaking a sweat trying to do that. So you just have to break it down slowly and try and get that groove. Now, when I do the upstroke, notice I let go of the tension with my left hand right away to truncate the sound of that note. So it happens like that, or that not the note, but the chord. So, all right, so there's one more step that we're going to add to that, and that's this. So after we played the upstroke, I'm going to go up, down. There's four brushes of the chord, up, down. So all together you have, and that's the groove that carries throughout the whole thing. Once you've got that, you've pretty much got the whole rhythm part with the right hand. Now there's different variations. Obviously every time I did this I might do it a little different. Like after I did the up, down, I might do something like that and do some muted strums. Why not? Because your hand is already in motion. And to me that's one of the fun things about playing rhythmic like this, is you can improvise pretty easily just by releasing and adding tension with your left hand. Your right hand just stays in motion anyway. So you're controlling it by pressing down or releasing the tension with your left hand. All right, so hopefully you've got that groove by now. Let me play it one more time slowly just so you can watch this. Okay, so that's what we do the first time. The second time I go, you get the same groove, but at the very end, I played a D chord there. And I'm playing it using the A shape. So it's, right? And it was a downstroke on that A chord. And then I let that ring out, and then we go back into the groove. So why does the 4 chord worked in there? When I'm playing over the 1 chord, why would I quickly jump to the 4 chord? Well, that's a technique that I associate with Jerry Garcia specifically. I used to think it was maybe just a Grateful Dead thing. Maybe Bob Weir came up with it. I wasn't sure who in the band introduced that, but I hear that in a lot of their grooves. But then when I got a little older and I was listening to Jerry's solo stuff, I hear that in his solo stuff as well. So I figured it's just something that he's introduced. And it's a very interesting technique where when you're playing the 1 chord, or let me take that number out. When you're playing a chord, you can always go to the 4 chord of that chord. So think about what I'm saying there. So whatever chord you're playing on, in this case we're playing on the A, so you go to the 4 chord of the A. Right? There's A, D, A. And then when you go to the 4 chord of the song, which is a D, you're going to play the 4 chord of the chord you're on. So we're going to play the 4 chord of D, which is G. Right? Back to the 1 chord. 4 chord of the 1 chord, right? You see what's going on there? And when we go to the E chord, we play the 4 chord of the E, which is an A. And it just creates this really fun little cycle. And to me, it sounds so good to bounce back and forth between that 1 chord and the 4 chord. I also hear Keith Richards doing a lot of that in his rhythm. 1 chord to the 4 chord, 1 chord, back and forth. It's just a nice little groove. All right, so after that, we go back to the beginning, same thing. And then watch this. Threw in a little fill lick. Now this is where it gets really fun because it's not hard to do. You can do this. So you want to work these into your playing now as a rhythm player, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's not hard. So we're playing over the A chord, right? So what I did was I came up here and played an A chord up here using the D shape. So it's just the top 3 strings. Think of your D chord in first position. If you were to play it up here, where your middle finger is on the 9th fret, that's an A chord. And then I came down and barred the first 3 strings on the 7th fret. I'll explain this in just a minute. Then back to the A chord here using this triad. So we went from an A triad up here to this B minor chord down to your A triad here. So these two would make sense because they're both A's, but why the B minor? Some of you ask. Well, that's because that was your 2 chord. So if you know your chord family, which I've covered in other lessons, you've got, your 1 chord is your A, your 2 chord is a B minor, 3 chord is an E minor, and so forth. But all you really need to know in terms of rhythm fills is you can bounce between your 1 chord and your 2 chord. Hopefully a light bulb just went off. Maybe some of you knew that, maybe some of you have never thought about that. And you don't even really have to question it so much, but it just sounds good to go from the 1 to the 2 and back and forth there. It's kind of like we were doing from the 1 to the 4. It's just another chord that you can work in. And so when I went, all that is 1 chord to the 2 chord, to the 1 chord, back to the 2 chord. So the groove goes. So fun to play, and it happens kind of quickly. And those first 2 are upstrokes with the right hand. And then we go down, up. But play around with that, where you've got your 1 chord, you got your little triads here. You know, you can hear how the 1 chord to that 2 chord is just a nice little addition. It's a nice little bridge. And when you're using these shapes, what's nice about that is you've got your D chord shape up here. You skip a fret, come to this one, right? Your 2 chord, skip another fret, go to your 1 chord. So they're evenly spaced, I guess. I'm like very symmetrical when I visualize things. And when they space out evenly like that, it just makes it that much easier to see. I got this idea from listening to the song TikTok People by Stevie Ray and his brother, that Family Style album. You know, there was that song that, something like this. I can't remember exactly what the rhythm is, but I remember learning that and kind of being amazed by how simple it is and how good it sounds. All right, so let's play along with a slow version of the jam track so we can play everything up to that point. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to go to the 4 chord. And so we're going to play the D chord, but I'm going to play it up here using the A shape. I'm trying to stay in the same zip code as I was for the 1. I like to just kind of keep everything concise. We stay in neighborhoods, or at least that's how I think of it. So we're going to slide into the D chord just the same rhythm with the right hand. And then watch this. There's that 4 chord that I just talked about. So slide in. So once I play the D chord using the A shape like that, I'm going to switch and come up here and play with my index finger on the 7th fret, strings 2, 3, and 4. I'm already playing them like this, but I'm just going to switch. I'm going to drop that note, basically, that 5th fret, 5th string. So I can come up here and play. And so while I've got that bar down, I put my middle finger on the 8th fret, 2nd string, ring finger on the 9th fret, 4th string. But you're only playing strings 4, 3, and 2. And that's that Keith Richards move. There's our D chord, or D triad. There's the 4 chord of the D triad, which is a G. Now, some of you get caught up in the names of chords, which is fine and necessary, I suppose, in some levels. But you might think about it this way. Just know shapes in a way. In a way, I don't even need to know that that's a G chord. I just need to know when I'm in this shape, I can come up here and hit that little 4 chord sound. I'm thinking more like sound instead of note names and chord names. Right? So from the D, we go back to the 1 chord. And then this time on the 1 chord, I do the same thing. Come up to that D shape, the B minor shape, and then to the triad here, using, which is the top part of your E shape. So I hung out on the A there instead of going back to the 2. So it's like this. Now the song goes to the 5 chord, which is our E chord. And so I came here and played the D shape. Why not, right? I was already in position here, and we're already playing a triad. Why not just grab this triad? And it's really close. It's like the nearest neighbor. And so that's one of the things that you really want to get comfortable with is when you know you're going to an E chord, once you get to a certain level of playing guitar, and it's not going to take you that long if you really just work on 1 chord. That's how I remember doing it. I learned an E chord, and I started thinking about all the positions for an E chord, where I could play it. Right? You can keep going with it. And that's just the cage system. But it's working on the cage system with one chord. And I probably didn't know the other chords for a while, but I knew one of them. So I knew if there was an E chord in a song, I was all over it. I knew all the options. And over time, you'll get at the A chord, you'll get the G chord. But just start with one. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just get one chord and get real comfortable with it. Then put on a jam track in the key of E and just really start to work it. That's a good strategy. Okay, so we went from... same groove, but we're playing it right here, playing the E. Then I came up here. Now some of you are going, wait, why would you come up there? That's that B minor that we were just talking about. Well, it is a B minor, but this is where triads are interesting. You can look at it that way. You can also look at it as an E9. And that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about where are my E's, and so I know that I got the one here. And I've got this space, and this will be a light bulb for some of you, so pay attention to this. But when you're looking at your A chord shape, we're playing an E chord here, but I'm using the A shape, and you can see my fingers are straddling between two frets. One is up here on the 9th fret, and one is here on the 7th fret. So if I play the top 3 strings of the 9th fret, that's an E6. And if I play the top 3 strings of that 7th fret, that's an E9. You're just going to have to trust me. And when there will be somebody leaving a comment, that's not an E9, that's a B minor. Well, it just depends on the context. It could be a B minor. If I played it like this with a B in the bass, yes, it's a B minor. But if I play it like this, it's an E9. It depends on how it's being used. So within an E9 is a B minor triad. That's a way to think about it. But just remember the shape. A shape, and you got E6, E9. So that means if I wanted to play a C6, here's my C chord, right? C6, C9. So from that E, here's the E9. Now I came up here and added my pinky to the 9th fret 1st string. I could have played it like this and played the E6, but I just added that one note there. And just kind of a little embellishment off the E9. You can think of it that way. So anytime you're playing this, you can come up here and grab, 2 frets higher, 1st string. And it's just a nice little embellishment off your E9. And then the song just goes back to the 1 chord, which is your A. And then we have a whole other section which gets very Grateful Dead-ish, but I'm going to save that for part 2. So if you're not a premium member, look into it. It's like super affordable, and I put out lessons like this every week. And I've been doing it for many years, so you'd have access to the entire back catalog. And if you're serious about learning how to jam and improvise and, not just memorize a song, but actually be able to pick up and play along with friends and stuff, that's what Active Melody is really for. That's what I designed all of these lessons for. So I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll see you in part 2.